Everyone else ready? In that case, I'll call the work session to order. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Hagenow. Councilmember Kerr. Here. Councilmember Martin.
Present.
Councilmember Parmet. Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor Riley.
Here.
There are 5 members present.
All right, thank you. Now we have an opportunity for a public comment period, and public's invited to step to the podium and speak or raise your hands online. You're limited to 3 minutes, and it's on any topic that is on the work session agenda. Would anyone like to speak? Anyone online like to speak? Is anyone raising their hands?
No.
No. In that case, I will close the public comment period and turn it over to the town manager for discussion of fire code updates.
Okay, I am going to turn this over to our community development director, who should be up here.
I didn't know that I was actually heading this up.
Yeah.
Basically, what we're trying to do tonight is get some more education with regards to fire code, building code, and the wildfire needs that the state mandate is going to be going into effect. We thought it'd be advantageous to have Scott Benson, thank you, to explain briefly the portions of the IBC, UBC, and I guess fire code is part of that or separate, and what changes are on the horizon. I have talked to Summit County Building Department. They are looking at adoption in May. There is a timeline associated with the fire code, I believe, is a fire code for April 1st.
It's the wildfire resiliency code that needs to be adopted by April 1st. That being said, I have to adopt it by April 1st. If jurisdictions are not ready yet, that's a whole separate issue.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. So I think it would be advantageous for you, Scott, to really hit the big ticket items that are changing.
And just before you start, Scott, a quick background on the way this will impact us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but our contract with the county for building services requires that we have an identical code to the county. That doesn't mean we have to adopt an identical code. If we choose to go different, we're just going to have to find someone else to do our building inspection.
Or renegotiate the contract.
What?
Or
Renegotiate the contract, one or the other.
Because the county does a building function for Silverthorne,
Okay.
and if Silverthorne went a different direction, it'd be questionable whether the county would change. We don't know what they would do.
Yeah, but you are indeed correct. That would necessitate a change of the contract between the county and the town with regards to specific exemptions or changes.
Okay, thanks, Scott. If you want to tell us what's happening with the fire
Sure.
code.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for not being there in person. I had every intention of being there in person, but I have another meeting at 4:30 in Frisco, and my goal is to get everybody dialed in. Let's start with the WUI code, the Wildfire Resiliency Code. This is state mandated. We are not allowed to ignore it. That being said, that we can amend it in certain ways if we make it more restrictive. The good news for Keystone and the rest of our jurisdiction is we've already been doing 90% of this code. We do wildfire defensible space inspections. We're already permitting those. The big change for us with the WUI code is in building materials. In conversations with the Division of Fire Prevention and Control, as well as Glenn Morgan, we're looking at putting into policy some alternative I hate that word, alternative methods and materials that have been approved by the California State Fire Marshal's Office. They've already done a significant amount of work in vetting the new materials or different treated materials. So that's coming. The big point I want to make with the WUI code is we can't not adopt it. We have to adopt the state language as is or make it more restrictive. And this is going out across every jurisdiction in the state. Any questions on that so far?
Yeah, yes, I have one. The
Sure.
California materials that you talked about, would that be more restricted than the state requirement?
We're trying to get clarification on that with the DFPC and legal if it measures up to, because through the code we are allowed alternative means and methods. We're seeing if that'll apply to the resiliency code. I can't promise it, but Glenn Morgan with the state, Jay with Red, White, and Blue, and myself have been lobbying the state that that's the direction we want to go. We just haven't had a firm answer yet.
But again, that's the question I'm really looking for is what you just said is the state, assume the state would accept it. The question is it more restrictive on the on the builders to use those materials versus what would be called out in the code today? And the code is as a state presented it.
I think it would give design a different option. Could it be, it depends on what their original specifications are, whether it's more expensive, less expensive. I don't have a firm answer for you. I wish I could just tell you, yeah, it's going to be no problem. In discussing this with the Summit County Builders Association, they're in favor of us coming up with alternative materials, just because it gives a better option, a wider option, and it's less narrow. Basically, if we go with the absolute state language, everything has to be non-combustible, made out of cement board or heavy timber material. And we're trying to come up with some different options that will satisfy all the parties in place and give us more options.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Scott, what's the extent of the new requirements on remodels?
The extent, and it's tricky the way the state, well, I shouldn't say it's tricky, it's silly the way the state wrote it. If you remodel 25% of your house at a given point, you have to update your whole house to the resiliency code standard. If you do 25% in the spring, and then you're done, and you do another 24% in the fall, you're done. If you do the following spring another 24%, you're done. It's not in the aggregate. It's only 24%. If you have, let's just for simplicity, cedar shake shingles on your roof, and you change 24% of that to the required shingles mandated by the state, you don't have to change your whole roof. You just have to, you're allowed up to 24% without changing anything else. The minute you go over 25%, it brings the whole rest of the building in. I wish I was kidding the way that was written, but it's not. So in the event that, I'm working with Glenn, with the county and other building departments, most of what we're requiring already meets the standard as far as roofing goes. It's the siding and the exterior finishes that are going to be the tricky part for builders and HOAs and designers coming once this new code's implemented.
Scott, I think it'd be beneficial also, if you could speak to the sprinkling issue. That's fire code, correct?
That's fine.
That's fire code. We'll get to that one.
Okay.
That's coming up. Now, the
I
one
know, I
thing
think we
that,
only have a certain amount of time.
yeah, the one thing I will say, and that this is it's not mandated, but the code, the new WUI code speaks directly to mapping of the jurisdiction, and the state has a great map. I say great, kind of tongue in cheek. It's got a map that tells you who's high, who's low, who's moderate. There is language in the bill for the resiliency code for what they call ground truthing. That can be done on an individual basis where a contractor comes in and says, well, I've mitigated my entire project. Am I still in the high range or the medium range, which kicks in the bulk of the materials for the WUI code? Jurisdictions are allowed to create their own map. It has to be vetted by the state, but they are allowed, and I would highly encourage every jurisdiction in Summit County to make their own map. It gives a more accurate map. It takes into account mitigation efforts that have already been done. The state flies over with a giant LiDAR map and comes up with probabilities off of that, and doesn't get granular and look at the community as a whole. So that being said, Keystone as a town, I would encourage to explore that option. I can't force you to do it. I could suggest it, and I think you should. So moving on to the code adoption of the 2024 IFC. We, as a fire district, only adopt the fire code. We don't do the International Building Code or any of the other codes. I still deal strictly with the IFC. It's part of a conglomeration of documents of different standards and codes that are produced by the International Code Council, and they very much so align with each other as far as what's in the IBC should reference what's in the IFC or the International Mechanical Code. They all work together. And there's very few places where they don't jive together. The big thing that I'm sure everybody's heard about is the sprinkler requirement. Traditionally, all over Summit County, we have had a 6,000 square foot rule that if you're in a single family home at 6,000 square feet, it has to be sprinklered. This year, we have dropped that level to 4,500 square feet. And that's based off an NFPA standard that says if you have this many homes or this size of a home, how many firefighters it should take to put that fire. And the bingo number for our area is 17. When you look at our staffing models across the jurisdiction to include red, white, and blue, we can't empty every firehouse in the jurisdiction to deal with one structure fire, because it happens all the time where we're running multiple events at the same time. Our choices were to lower the threshold or hire more staffing, and we don't have the funding to hire more staffing at this time. By dropping it to 4,500, that covers our bases with the NFPA standards. And frankly, it just makes sense. If we go with code language the way it's written and not doing any amendments, it says all buildings shall be sprinklered, including residential, and that's coming out of the IRC. We've tried to, we've accommodated 6,000 square feet in the past, but looking at what affordability is in the jurisdiction, average price of a house is in Summit County is $800 a foot. At 4,500, you're at 3.2 million. That doesn't put the squeeze on locals trying to build. We have carve outs for affordable housing, to where if there's a affordable housing project going in with single families or duplexes, they have to apply and show us that, yes, this is an affordable housing that meets the county requirements for affordable housing, at which point we can waive that fee if it's applied for. Any questions so far? I don't want to get too far down the rabbit.
What fee are you talking about? I thought we were talking about building requirements.
This is, well, the requirement for, if I said fee, I apologize. We can waive the requirement for sprinklers and affordable housing in multifamily. God, where am I going with this? I'm sorry, my brain's just detached right now. Sprinkler requirements for single family homes. We're talking about lowering the threshold to 4,500 square feet. That's where the Builders Association and other jurisdictions got concerned. And I'm sorry, I'm conflating impact fees with sprinkler requirements. Been a long day and I apologize. So any questions about the sprinkler requirement?
Is that, I'm not sure how this one works. Is this a mandated or does the town opt out of something like that?
In talking with the red, white, and blues jurisdiction in the county before we even proposed this, we met with the building departments of the county and others and floated the idea. Glenn at the county said it made sense. It ties in with other parts of the energy code and the building code at the 4,500 square feet. So that is why that number exists. You can, well, I can't, you can reject our proposal outright and say, no, we don't want to do that. And you're within your right to do that. I can tell you, I have done extensive research on sprinklers. They save homes, they save lives. They stop a house fire from turning into a wildland fire, which I've seen happen before. Not in this jurisdiction, but I've seen it happen in another jurisdiction I'm affiliated with. They make sense for our jurisdiction based on just our proximity to the wildland urban interface. Looking at our current snow conditions and what predictable models are saying about what spring's going to look like, it's very possible a single family home could start a wildland fire. Now, I don't want to, I'm not Chicken Little saying the sky's falling, but it's only for 4,500 square feet and above.
Are all of the jurisdictions in the county that you've talked to generally on board with this?
The county is. Town of Breckenridge has already signed off on it. I've had preliminary conversations with the town of Frisco, which is who I'm meeting at 4:30. Trying to get this thing at least agreed upon. Town of Silverthorne wanted me to move it to 5,000 square feet. And I told them I wanted to talk to all the other jurisdictions first to make sure if we can get a across the board universal language across the county, that's better for everybody. It's better for the building departments, it's better for the fire department, it's better for the contractors. So we're all playing off the same rule book.
John,
Do you have a rough estimate of what the fire sprinkler system would cost for a 4,500 square foot house?
It's dependent on what type of, I mean, it's like how much does a car cost? It depends on what kind of car you want. If you want copper pipe, that's going to be more expensive. For residential, it's called a 13D system. You can use CPVC. I won't tell you to Google national averages because it doesn't apply to us because of our location, but about $30,000 for a 4,500 square foot house is what I've heard from two different sprinkler fitters, and that's the number the Builders Association used. I think you could do it a little cheaper than that, but it's less than 1% of the cost of it.
And if I heard you correctly, there's a difference between a residential and commercial grade sprinkler system.
There's
And so
actually 3 different types of systems you can put in. One is a 13 system, which is required in all commercial installations. When you have multifamily like Wintergreen Project or multiple multifamily units, that falls under 13R. And for a single family home, it's a 13D system. And that system is strictly meant to protect egress, get people out, although more often than not, it's not designed to do it, but it does typically put the fire out. Or control it to its room of origin until the fire department can get there.
Carol?
Not proposing this, but to be a devil's advocate, if sprinklers are such a terrific idea, why isn't the threshold lower? Why isn't it for everyone? Give us your sense of the common sense approach of to this.
In 2009, the international residential, I was just trying to make sure I got that number right in my head. In 2009, I believe it was 2009, the International Residential Code, also known as the IRC, mandated that all single-family homes be sprinklered. Across the nation, everybody freaked out and amended that part out so that it didn't affect. They had to take it out of the code. It already existed. It's still in there now. Over time, more jurisdictions are getting on board with that. The state of California mandated that all single-family homes must have sprinklers, and there's different jurisdictions all over the country that have removed that exemption or removed that amendment out and are letting the code stand on its own. We, back in the good old days when we were a fire department of volunteers, we would get 30 or 40 volunteers on a fire if we had one. At least that's the story I've been told. I've only been here for 8 years. But going to a professional fire department with paid staff entirely, our numbers that are available to go on a fire are smaller. That being said, cost is an issue with some folks. I can't speak to why the different jurisdictions have amended it out, but we're trying to come up with a happy compromise to where we're protecting high-end structures. That makes sense, and trying to keep costs low.
Thank you.
So Scott, a quick question. Duplex, if they're both 2,300 square feet, would be required to be sprinkled under this?
No.
Okay.
Duplexes have a fire barrier between them that goes from foundation to roof line. So that would be, duplexes fall under the International Residential Code for construction. So do townhomes, because there's a fire separation between all those units. So those would not be required. That would be exempt from the sprinkler requirement.
Thank you.
What's the requirement for homes that go through renovation?
So I'll give you the example that I used to work in Vail as a carpenter. We did a house, 16,000 square feet. We tore down everything but one wall and one roof line, and it was considered a remodel. Brand new structure except for one wall of 12 feet and a roof line that went up 20 feet, and it was considered a remodel. We, at 50% remodel of a house, we require that, or anything that brings something above 4,500 square feet, it would require a sprinkler. If you have a 4,000 square foot house and you're putting on 1,000 more square feet, we would only require the sprinkler to be installed in the additional 1,000 square feet of the remodel. Does that make sense?
All right.
The reason being, it's cost prohibitive for you to tear out all your ceiling in your existing home to put in a sprinkler. So we're only going to require that sprinkler in the new addition. As far as, yeah, that's really all that matters. That's only where that comes in. If you're at 4,000 square feet and you add another 4,000 on, we're only going to require you to sprinkle the new addition.
Other questions?
Is there a tap fee? I mean, does the water department need to? And I know that a lot of them require additional system shut-off protection systems. If it's installed, well, the insurance companies require that. Is that correct?
Not sure what you're meaning by that.
I just,
In other words, if the system activates, you have a separate shut-off capability for it.
they require, I spoke with some insurance companies and they, I was hoping that this would be able to reduce our insurance costs, and it doesn't. Number one. And number two, they said that they would require systems with shut-off protection components as well, probably why it's the 30,000+. And what they didn't know is that, does the water department here, have tap fees for things like this in addition?
The water department will not charge you an additional tap fee for putting in a fire sprinkler system. Depending on the pressure at your house, it could require a tank and pump system, which is totally separate of your water system. The amount of water required for a 13D system is 10 minutes. One head is 13 gallons per minute. So really it's about a 200-gallon tank to protect your home using a one head calculation. I'm not an insurance broker, but all the information I've read and from the insurance brokers that I've talked to, if you have a sprinkler system, it does decrease the price of your homeowner's insurance. I can't speak to that because I personally don't have one in my home. It's not big enough. And, but I could tell you if I was building a house, I would. And the big reason I say that, open floor plans, materials in homes, training I've done, it's less than 3 minutes from ignition of ordinary combustibles in a space. In 3 minutes, that room has reached flashover. What that means is it goes from a fire in a room to a room on fire in 3 minutes. The average time it takes for a smoke detector, if it's monitored, to alert its central station, call 911, get the fire department running out the door is a little over 3 minutes. So we're already behind the ball before we even get off the apron. The room's already completely engulfed. Sprinkler systems knock that time down extensively, almost 9 minutes. It's better for protection for the people in the building itself, and it gives us as the fire department a chance to save the structure.
So you seem to be tying the proposed 4,500 square feet to a number of firefighters available, yes?
That's the NFPA standard that.
Right. So I'm asking you if you can give us the shortest ever tutorial on the difference between fighting a 2,500 square feet home fire versus a 5,000, just to help us understand what's at stake here.
Room, time to number of personnel and time to clear a building to make sure nobody's in there, nobody's incapacitated. Look at it this way. I would say, take 4 people and cover their face, turn them loose in a 22,000 square foot space and verify that there's nothing in there. Now do that same thing and do it in 5,000 square feet. It's going to take them twice as long to clear the building. That's the start. And then bringing in additional apparatus and based off your required fire flow for a building that's 2,500 square feet's about 1,000 gallons a minute. About 5,000 square feet, you're up 25 to 3,000 gallons a minute, 2,500 to 3,000 gallons a minute. And then we need firefighters on those hoses to spray and do overhaul and check for extension. It's significant.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Other questions? Thank you very much, Scott.
And one thing I want to point out as far as that's the big thing in our code adoption this year. One thing Chief Nelson with Red, White, and with Red, White, and Blue and I did this year, we really looked at everything in our code adoption because we've always done it this way was not an acceptable answer. We trimmed about 10 pages off of our code adoption. We changed some language to give the fire department a little bit more discretion with things like instead of shall have a fire command center, it says may. We've been putting fire command centers in areas that don't have a high density of people in them, like storage units or large, open space warehouses. Fire command centers are for hotels and large office buildings where the potential loss of life is elevated. If you look through our code adoption, a lot of what we did helped make things easier for everybody, and it got rid of because we've always done it that way. It just doesn't make sense anymore. I'd love to come back and talk with you folks again at your next meeting after you've had some time to review this. But yeah, and again, I apologize for not being there in person.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope. Thank you again.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
We also have a representative from the Summit County Builders Association. If you want to come up and give us your take on the new fire codes.
Where would you like me?
Anywhere the microphones will pick you up.
Okay. Hello, I'm Caroline Powers. I am the president of the Summit County Builders Association. Thank you for having me today. There's a lot happening here with codes. So I'm really just here to answer questions and clarify kind of the conversations that we've been having. So I will start with, I'll start with the WUI code, which is the Wildfire Resiliency Code. There has been a lot of talk at the state level of actually delaying the adoption of this. There is a coalition in place right now attempting to create a delay. The impacts are big. Obviously, cost is a huge impact, but this Wildfire Resiliency Code looks to take away about 37% of the siding materials that we are currently using. That's a big chunk of the market. So there are vendors that are worried or scrambling to, provide new products. So that's a big concern. And as I've mentioned, there's a coalition in place, and they're just trying to delay the adoption so that builders and vendors and suppliers can be a little bit more prepared. Another concern with a lot of the composite siding products, we live in the mountains here. We want our homes to look like mountain homes. A lot of the newer composite products do not look like wood. They look like fake wood or painted composite siding. So there's the aesthetic piece of it as well that has been a concern. So that's kind of the Wildfire Resiliency Code. As Scott mentioned, we've done a great job here locally with, wildfire resiliency as a community, and we should be really proud of that. This kind of takes it to that next level with siding and decking. Those are kind of the two big products that are of concern. Any questions on that piece? Yeah.
I'm just not sure. What are you saying? That you really don't support these new codes?
We don't know. So the Wildfire Resiliency Code, as Scott says, that's at the state level. We don't really get to dictate. So I can't say I don't support it because it's going to happen. There is a push for it to be delayed, which I would support, right? Just to give suppliers and contractors more time to kind of figure out our options. The other thing that he mentioned is the CAL FIRE list. We do support that. That will give us more options, as Scott had said.
Okay.
And per Glenn Morgan over at the county, I do believe he's on board with that. And, they're doing the legwork to make that fit here. The other thing is the mapping that Scott had talked about. We do think it's in everybody's best interest to take a look at each community individually and, figure out what is considered the high risk, medium risk, and low risk, because that will also dictate some of these things. But, if this is happening in April, that doesn't give us a lot of time to figure those things out. So if anybody's interested in hearing more about the coalition, I do have some information here that I could share. So that's kind of the wildfire resiliency code. Any other questions on that? Okay. I will talk about now probably the IFC code. It sounds like many of you have heard about the concerns with the sprinkler square footage. We did pull a little bit of data. So Keystone has 509 single family homes. 188 of them fall between 2,500 and 4,500. 37% of those are single families in town. 21% of those 509 homes are locals here in Keystone. There are just over 6,000 other single family homes in unincorporated Summit County that are impacted by this. And one thing I'd like to point out is its total square footage. So you look at a 3,500 square foot home with a 3-car garage, you're up over 4,500. We keep thinking of 4,500 as these mega mansions, and they're not. They are a nice single family home here in Summit County. So that was one thing I really wanted to clarify. It's both finished and unfinished space. It's everything inside the building envelope. As Scott mentioned, it's currently 6,000. We have also made the request to kind of meet in the middle at that 5,000 square feet. Based on the data that we pulled, that actually it does kind of seem to be a more divisive segment in the market. And then some of the comments that Scott had mentioned regarding the remodels, I have some information that Glenn Morgan put together for us. My understanding is if you have a 4,500 square foot home and you are adding less than 500 square feet, then you don't need to sprinkle it because you're under 5,000, which is very confusing. But if you add 550 square feet and you get up over the 5,000, then you have to sprinkle only the addition. So now you're trying to put a sprinkler in 550 square foot area of the home. The cost of a sprinkler system actually increases with a smaller square footage. The numbers that I received for sprinklers can range from $4 to $10 per square foot. Lots of variables. It depends on the size, but the smaller the sprinkler system, the more expensive it actually is because you have to put all the parts and pieces into a smaller space. The larger homes, it actually decreases the cost per square foot of a sprinkler. So I just wanted to clarify that.
What would you, Scott gave us an estimated cost to sprinkle a 4,500 square foot home?
I would say 30 is on the low side. I would say it's 30 to 40,000.
Right.
Yeah. The other piece that I wanted to touch on was the remodels. And again, this is one of the things that we've been requesting clarification on. We got a little bit of clarification from Glenn Morgan, but 50% is the trigger. So if you have a remodel that is over 4,500 and you're remodeling more than 50% of the home, they do want the entire home retrofitted. And that, I don't know if that was clear in the discussion with Scott. So now you're talking about tearing out ceilings, insulation, potentially redesigning the roof, right? Some of these older structures don't have that roof capacity that you need now to meet the energy codes with the greater insulation that we require here in Summit County. And those are significant costs. And those are the homes that, maybe somebody's lived in Summit County for 20 years, they bought it a long time ago, and now they want to remodel it. And now you're looking at significant costs. Now it's not just the cost of the sprinkler, but it's drywall, insulation, paint, et cetera. If you're on a well, You had asked about tap fees. If you're on a well and you have to put in a sprinkler system, you have to put huge storage tanks in your home. Space then becomes a concern. So the retrofitting of a sprinkler system into some of these older homes is a significant undertaking. Any questions?
What defines a remodel?
So the interpretation currently is 50% of the existing home.
But I mean,
Moving one wall,
okay.
carpet, floors, paint, moving, I think, one wall within the home. And it's vague. That's, again, part of what we don't understand. And if it's up for discretion, whose discretion is it? So we have requested as the Builders Association more clarity regarding the remodel piece. We have also requested that 5,000 be the square footage.
So anecdotally, Scott talked about his carpentry experience and one wall and one
Sure.
whatever. Is that discretion of that person in bail at that time was that's a remodel, and then that could totally be a different opinion?
I think he was making the joke that, you know, the remodels that we do here in Summit County typically do encompass the majority of the home, right? If you have a home that's 40 years old and you're doing a remodel, you are most likely moving walls, you're tearing out carpet, drywall. But the way the code reads is more than 50%. So how do we define that? That's kind of the big question.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions on that? I mean, yes.
What would you say to the fact that I think it was Frisco or Silverthorne wants 5,000, Breck is already on board for 4,500. Is a compromise something that you guys might get behind and lobby?
We feel like 5,000 is the compromise. And yes, we fully support the 5,000. We've had lots of conversations with the town of Silverthorne. We've had conversations with the town of Frisco. Val is at another meeting right now with Scott, having the same conversation. So we would love some type of compromise. These are significant costs. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but we are in the midst of a housing crisis. And it doesn't matter if you own a 2,500 square foot home or a 4,500 square foot home. We are all here trying to live and raise families. And it does have significant impacts. Based on the data that we ran, 5,000 seems to be where that square footage seems to drop off and have less impacts. So yes, we feel like
Less impact on what?
The amount of homes that will be affected by this code. Aaron.
You have numbers on how many homes you would be affecting at the 5,000 cutoff versus 45?
I can definitely pull the data. I don't know if you walked in late. I may have missed the initial.
I heard everything I was on.
Okay. So I brought with me today the Keystone specific information, but we have data from the whole county. We'd be happy to share that with you.
Okay.
Yeah, but it went, I think, from, double digits to, I think, less than 10%.
So in that Keystone data, I assume you were looking at, for the new homes, vacant lots? And what you could.
This was existing single families. So this is more the remodel piece. And truly, in my opinion, I feel like the remodel piece has more of an impact than the new construction piece. It's much easier to put a sprinkler system in a new home than it is in existing.
So then why wouldn't the compromise be new homes above 4,500 would require the sprinkler system and remodel under 5,000 wouldn't?
We would be open to discussing that. Absolutely.
Did you agree with Scott's assessment of, I think it was $3.8 million would be the rough evaluation of the home at 4,500 or more?
So he's talking about sale price. And when you're talking about sale price of a home, it's typically finished square footage. So I think his numbers were slightly inflated.
Because of the 3-car garage example you provided.
Exactly. When you're talking about cost per square foot in the sale of a home, it's typically the finished square footage. So it would be 3,500 times the 800 if you wanted to be real specific.
Most 3-car garages, 1,000 square feet.
Not typically, but then any unfinished space, so your mechanical room or any storage areas. I'm right, kind of generalizing finished versus unfinished square footage. I would say a 3-car garage is about 750 to 800 square feet. Yes, it is.
Just 2.8 million, call it.
And again, that's sale price, not necessarily build price.
Would you agree that 800 is per square foot? What do you believe that the cost for new construction is per square foot?
Typically new construction right now, I would say it's 500 to 700 a square foot.
Thank you.
It's a very general
Yeah.
guesstimate.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very much.
Today.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Happy to provide any other information.
Town manager?
Well, I guess before we move on, Ed, we've heard what's coming down. What are your feelings about this? Now there's pushback from Silverthorne. Frisco's still up in the air. We're clearly going to talk about this at our managers meeting Friday or whenever we have it.
I think the easy answer is the compromise that John proposed. 4,500 on new builds and 5,000 on remodels.
That isn't what John proposed. I thought John proposed to compromise 5,000 and no restrictions on the rebuild.
No,
4,500.
No. I said 45, I said exactly what Aaron said, 4,500 for builds, 5,000 for remodels. That just, to me, and to explain a little bit more, that makes sense, right? If we're talking about a compromise, what the Builders Association is comfortable with being 5,000, I think that 4,500 piece though is being lost, and I'm concerned about that new construction, right? Because I totally agree that the major impact is going to be that the remodel, right? But putting anything in from the ground when it's being built from scratch is going to be easier than retrofitting afterwards.
And my concern is the remodels.
100%. But if they're comfortable with 5,000, might as say no.
Well, I would, did a little research as well. And then, it's a tough time because we're very cost conscious about housing. And we're talking about raising, a couple percentage points. Well, I mean, that's on top of, if you listen to the NAHB, 25% right now is code. Code drops 25% more on the house. So we're going to add another 3% maybe. And so but at the same time, I think sprinkler systems are great when you talk, because it does save lives. People have argued that because smoke detectors do that too. But it does tap the fire down faster. I personally would just go with the 5,000 compromise after reading all this.
What say your compromise on the renovation portion?
For both.
Okay.
And you're saying that is a compromise between 4,500 and 6,000?
Right.
Even though
Right.
6,000 is no longer on the table?
Well, when you look at the numbers, yeah, we could stick at 6. But, when you look at Keystone, that probably, it is distorted because of the non-finished area. So I don't really know what this represents.
That's problematic, isn't it?
But, I'm trying to be conscientious in thinking 5,000 is a compromise on both. My view.
And the renovation piece would be if the renovation takes the home over 5,000.
Right.
So it wouldn't kick in if it didn't take it over 5,000.
I'd like to see more detail on what a renovation is. If I replace my
50%.
flooring in half the house, does that
What is the definition?
Does that mean I have to rip out all my drywall?
I share that concern. I share the mayor's concerns about the remodels. I'm not very concerned about 4,500 for new construction. We don't have a whole lot of empty lots. We're mostly talking about scrape and rebuilds here.
Yeah.
And if you can scrape and rebuild, you can probably put a sprinkler in your 4,500 square foot house.
But Ron,
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I would like to circle back with the fire experts. And I mean, we're talking compromise dollar wise, but what does that compromise mean totally for that safety and saving lives? Right? He talked about some reduced times and some reduced, number of firefighters and those kind of things, which are expenses as well, because what I don't want to see happening is on the flip side of that is hearing that we need more firefighters because we have these that don't have sprinklers, that the taxpayers are then picking up that burden for the 4,000, 4,500, 5,000 foot. But we're talking compromise on dollars, and I want to hear a little bit what that compromise does to the overall safety or the needs of the fire department. Because there's obviously some
what it does.
they're bringing that up. What's that?
I think what it does, what I heard him say is that increases the requirements for firefighters that cannot be afforded. So if in order to increase the number of firefighters, that's an expense that's borne by everyone. Right.
And I think that's a really good point that you two just made. We don't want to socialize the cost of construction of very large houses by failing to add a safety measure that would not create a need for that extra cost that would be spread across the fire district through a mill levy on property values. And I have worked in emergency services, and I have seen what happens when all the stations are empty and someone else needs help, and it's not pretty.
One of the things that we have, I believe, failed to talk about, right? We talked about the cost of the implementation. We talked about the insurance briefly, but from an anecdotal point, right? I've had a fire sprinkler system freeze and pop and flood my building twice now in the past couple of years. That cost does not go unnoticed, right? We talk about the cost to install on this, but what happens when the sprinkler system does not operate as expected, causes a flood, almost killed a dog in one of our hotel rooms, right? Because it flooded, right? Things can happen that we don't anticipate. And we always talk about the positives of it, but I think that there's a lot of faulty things that can happen, right? When we have these deep freezes that happen, if the sprinkler system isn't monitored correctly. A lot of these houses are probably unoccupied for most of the year. So what happens when it freezes and floods during the off season, and all of a sudden nobody notices for three months, right? So it's things like that also I think we need to consider.
You bring up a good point. I think the answer is while Dan did the research that there's not an aggregate community decrease in insurance, there is for a house to have a sprinkler system or not to have increased insurance, right? Well, the individual property.
I asked my guy, he said no. So, okay.
He said no to what?
If I had a sprinkler system, it would not reduce my homeowners. They're worried about the outside.
Would it increase of it?
He didn't say increase. I asked if it would decrease.
Because that's where my question is the people with the real data on this are the actuaries, and they look at how many flood claims are we doing versus the cost of fire claims. And, if they raise your insurance because you have a sprinkler system, then the answer is more obvious as to what the tendency tends to be.
I didn't ask that. I should have asked that.
I've asked the question of the major insurer of the multifamily units here in Keystone. Mm-hmm. And his concern is the broken pipes. And when a pipe breaks, it's a huge expense. And while you're not going to get a decrease in premiums and they may not even have a increase in premiums because of it, the first event that you have will result in either loss of insurance coverage, period, or significantly raised rates.
And that's always a problem with any sort of flooding. Of course, we're not talking about multifamily I know of a case where someone left the window open and they flooded 9 units, not because of the fire suppression system, but because just, they left the window open and it was -20 and it broke
But the fire
yeah.
suppression units, when they go off, they're going off everywhere in the house, and they've taken the house out. Now, I agree with the concern of new homes and fire suppression.
I don't think they actually do go off everywhere. I think fire suppression systems trigger on heat.
They go off, at least the ones that were over in River Run this year.
It depends.
They took a whole building out.
Okay.
So what are you asking?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I want to know if council has a recommendation to forward. Is that what you're saying?
No, we're going to have to, council is going to have to adopt these codes ourselves at some point in the future. And I'm just, I do agree with Scott and it would be better if we could be somewhat uniform across the county, certainly across the county served by Summit Fire and EMS and possibly the county building department for inspections. What do we want to see in this next round of discussions that various staff members are going to be having? Trying to figure out where we all want to come down.
It sounds like some of the towns are still processing this.
Yeah.
Is it your understanding that the county is firm? They're not relooking this? Because I believe that if the towns had a position for a compromise, the county might consider that.
I think it'd be, maybe the next logical step would be to have the building official, Glenn Morgan, speak to that issue as well. Maybe we get a three-pronged approach with the fire district, with where the county's coming from, because it has changed over some time with regards to where they sit.
Where the county sits.
That is correct.
So, Miss Powers is very highly educating to me. But when she spoke of the housing crisis, I think I know you're still here, really useful. But when you speak of the housing crisis, I think we forget that there is a latent forest fire crisis. We, as John headlined this part of the agenda, the wild urban interface, I believe that we will continue to move that number down. So if we can come up with a compromise situation that enables the towns to agree with the county, I think maybe we reach out to the county and start that conversation. And maybe the building association would join us.
Yeah, Mayor Manager meeting.
The county managers meeting.
And I did want to make,
Perfect.
when I said
Yeah,
that,
that's what he's going to talk about.
Okay.
He's looking for our guidance so he can go
Because
into
it's easy to have one number and that's it. It's easy, but maybe the remodel issue is.
the remodel issue is my concern. I know that
Absolutely.
the fire department is concerned. Right now, they're serving all the existing homes with existing staff.
Yeah. And
I understand the issue with new homes. I'm concerned about renovations and what that level ought to be. And I guess I'd ask Lindsay the question. You've had some remodeling requests come in. What are we seeing?
The remodels for single families far outweighs the new builds.
I understand, but how big are they?
Oh, as far as square footage?
Yeah, would any of them have gone over this threshold?
If so, only one or two. And those would have been in the ranch. So, Alders, I'd have to check. We've had two new starts in the Alders. And again, I'm not used to not counting garage space. So I'm used to livable space. So I'd have to double check those numbers. It would be close with regards to
The 5,000 square feet. Some of our homes could have triggered that.
Good.
Do you remember what there was a new home, the variance that we granted in?
Less than 4,500.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that one as well,
yeah.
primarily because the lot size is so small.
Yeah.
I just wanted to revamp what I said earlier. When I was saying 5,000, I was thinking we would try to be consistent, and that was an easy number versus mixing it with the second number. But if the rest of the council believed we wanted to have two different numbers, I'd be okay. But I was thinking simplicity, since one of the other towns was already 5. So,
Breckenridge goes their own way usually anyway.
and I realize we probably have,
And they don't use the county building department,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Oh, they do?
Silverthorne uses it.
No, I'm talking Breck,
Oh, Brooke, yeah.
right? So
And they don't use.
I think we have a sense that we'd like you to explore this
Okay.
with the
And also,
county, and I
because-
appreciate that.
Breck doesn't use Summit Fire and EMS either.
That's true.
All right, we'll have this, we have a managers meeting, not this coming Friday, but the next Friday.
okay.
Okay.
And I was just talking to Lindsay, we'll get Glenn in the county to show up and we'll try to pound out some thoughts on this.
Thank you.
And I think the objective would be to come to some sort of agreement among all the towns and the county to
Absolutely.
come up with a standard.
Could we,
Clearly, there's
and
concern.
I don't want to drive it, but could you float the 5,000 idea and just see what they say?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I mean, me personally, right, I'd be okay with the 5,000 as the set number, but I'd also be okay with the 45,500.
Yeah, I'd rather the renovation number be more flexible and higher just because we have some older homes over on Soda Ridge Road, some older homes.
That are probably on the edge,
We
yeah.
have a lot of, on Soda Ridge, full-time residents on Soda Ridge. And if they wanted to renovate, you could suddenly find yourself.
Adding 30, 40,000.
Well, it wouldn't be adding 30,000 to it, it'd probably be adding 100,000 to an existing.
Just a sprinkler.
Because you're not paying just for the sprinkler.
That's what my concern.
Simply,
Drywall.
they won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, if you could also tease out some of that difference, right? A 4,500 versus 5,000. What kind of additional risk are we assuming with that? And that cost benefit analysis, I think, is where the true.
Does an ADU count towards the total?
Yes,
If it's attached.
if it's attached.
But I
Of
thought
course. Okay.
it's a fire code question because I thought it might be subject to the same firewall requirements as a duplex.
Oh.
The county is looking at making a provision to exclude an ADU from the impact list.
Who is? Sorry. Okay.
So it'd fall under that affordable housing exception.
But you are correct with the firewall separation issue for ADUs.
Okay. And one last point, and Carol started to talk about it. And just, you talked about the housing crisis we have. The housing crisis we have isn't for new homes of 4,500 square feet. Yeah, we do
Just
not,
wanted to be that
we
clear,
do not have a
yes.
housing crisis for, in this city, in this town, for homes of 4,500 square feet or more.
But you are.
So, all right. Anything else?
No, I'm
Second,
good. We'll be talking about this again in the near future. So, all right.
Very educated.
Next item is the discussion of the down payment loan fund. Mr. Town Manager.
Okay, we might not have a housing problem with 4,500 square foot homes, but we definitely do still have a housing problem in this community. This was something I discussed last fall, October, November. The Housing Authority has run a down payment assistance loan fund. The fund provided loans up to $40,000 at 2% interest of terms up to 20 years. They were limited to residents making below 160% of AMI. 160% of AMI for a family covers lower to mid management positions, pretty much from mid-management on down, you're looking at 160% AMI. This program runs throughout the county, this loan program, and it ran out of money in the end of 2025, just because of people using it. There has not been a problem with defaults on the loans, issues like that. The loans are secured by the properties that they're used to buy. So that's not the problem. The SCHA asked its member jurisdictions each to contribute $75,000 to help replenish the fund. Breckenridge, Silverthorne, and Dillon have each contributed $75,000. Council asked me to look into a proportional share of the cost. Unfortunately, and I should have thought of this at the time they asked, can't figure that out because we have 3 towns that have each contributed $75,000. So there is no, is it proportional based on Breckenridge, or are we talking proportional based on Dillon? Those are 2 very different numbers. The other issue is the Summit County Housing Authority would gladly take any donation to help replenish this fund. So I'm bringing that back up to you as a council to see if you would like to participate in helping replenish this fund and to what level. Our report is wrong. I said the town has approximately 1.7 million in its housing fund. It's now approximately 1.2 million because we
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay.
use money for the down payment on this property, but that fund is consistently replenished. Will never be replenished enough because the only real way out of a housing problem is to throw money at it.
Can I ask a fundamental question before we debate this? So we're talking about replenishing a fund. What is the original source of funds?
It was contributions from the
Contributions
From
that
the
are part of our
entities.
IGA?
It was built by the SCHA with initial investments from the member organizations.
Okay, so this was never set up with a recurring source of funding.
No,
So the business plan,
did not expect it to be that popular.
well, although if you look at what the director has said in the past, they changed the rules and that made it more popular. So now that it's popular, they still don't have a funding system or regular source. And are they just going to reach out
They will.
periodically and
This
say,
is-
people still want our money? Do you want to give it to us?
This is one of the things we will be discussing Thursday at our retreat.
Which retreat is that?
this-
Sorry.
This is me retreat.
Yeah, retreat.
Summit
You're
County-
retreating with
Summit
yourself.
County- Summit County Housing Authority.
Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable with.
No matter what, it's not like the SCHA can set up an automatic replenishment without the support of the communities. Anyways, this would be a decision we would have to make and approve.
True, but it's good to be able to plan as
Yes.
opposed to see the hand come out.
Of course, yeah, before you could have it self-replenishing.
Yeah.
You'd have to have 20 years, which is, I think, the duration of the loan, to potentially have it play out, so you'd.
Self-replenishing,
Coming
yes.
back. And you also have income coming back from the people paying back the loans.
It's worth way less in 20 years than it is now.
Yeah, so it's. Yeah,
Quick question. Do you know how many of our folks in Keystone participate today?
I don't have the exact number on that, but it was more than 10.
Over the
Yeah,
last couple of years.
yeah, over the,
Out of how many?
And when,
I didn't think to ask that question.
The second part, and then I'll shut up. When I was looking at, and I was wanting to know, a Keystone size contribution. I was looking at our budget versus others. I mean, total budgets.
Yeah.
And so our budget is much, much less than Dillon and some other towns. And so when I was looking at it, I wasn't going to base it on how much they did, but looking at, we're 30% of their budget. So it should be 30% of
Well,
75,000 or something like that.
well, since it comes out of the housing fund, it shouldn't be general fund. It should be a comparison to the housing fund in the other.
But the amount of dollars in the housing fund is, if you said 30%, it'd be 30%. That number would be relatively close anyway, because it's all based on.
Well, no, because these other towns have significantly higher sales tax rates than we do. So for instance, Dillon alone, Dillon's housing fund is very close to our housing fund revenue.
But is it fair to say that whatever's in the housing fund is as a point in time as they amass money for specific projects? And that's why Frisco is already accounted for what they have, right?
Yeah, Frisco is not doing it because they're spending their housing fund down completely.
That's why I went back to overall budget.
Yeah.
What's, percentage wise, that was what I was thinking.
I thought that's what we were looking at,
Sorry.
yeah.
I was looking at housing fund sales tax revenue each jurisdiction gets.
Right.
All right, and our percentage is significantly less than the other jurisdictions.
No, it's not significantly less than the other jurisdictions.
Tell me a jurisdiction other than Dillon that's close.
Well, Dillon is 1/4 of the remaining jurisdictions out there. And yes, Frisco, Silverthorne, and Breckenridge all have.
Significantly higher.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, is the point. Now, I believe that this loan program is important. All right. And I recognize that we're new and we are joining in with the other jurisdictions are getting to know us and our desires. I would be willing to support the 75,000 contribution under the caveat that the housing authority understand in the future, we would not support anything other than a proportional share based on the revenue we receive from of the housing tax dollars.
And I think we should push that for any sort of SHA program.
Anything.
Yeah.
And why would we
do it now?
not do that now? Makes sense.
Because when they went out, they didn't include that. And they really are looking for a larger amount to bolster. And in our case, the dollar ask is small.
I am a huge fan of the down payment program. I think that's one of the best ways to use housing funds. I want that out there before I ask the following questions. Well, is the county contributing? And the follow-up question is, how much of the housing dollars that would have gone to Keystone, how much in that interim time between when we asked to join Summit County Housing Authority and when they finally let us on, how much money was that?
Good question.
We got backdated.
Yeah, we received everything except for the 3 weeks in February.
That's it.
That's good.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's good.
And just kind of going back to how many people in Keystone benefit from it. I said it was around 10, but that number does not include like Summit Cove or people. We don't have a lot of houses that people could have taken advantage of this program in the town of Keystone. But we have a lot of employees in the town of Keystone who could have taken advantage of the program outside of the numbers we had.
That was my position, that You know, it's our responsibility to think Keystone first and foremost, our people, our priorities. That's what we're here for. But there are a lot of things that make sense to centrally allocate, and our people, our employees live all over the county. So I'm in favor of doing this, but maybe not the 75 our first time around, maybe a lesser number, and then tie it to what we bring in for housing fund money.
I'll get to you next. I just had a follow on that Karen asked a question, wasn't answered. Is Summit County participating?
Yes, they are. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you.
The same
Thank you.
amount?
75,000.
Okay.
So just super quick, I presume that whatever contribution we or other municipalities are giving, in 20 years, they're not going to give us a check for 40,000, right? No. Makes total sense, right? I also agree with Carol that we should support this in some way. I would not, just on the record, I would not support 75,000. And the reason why is that, and every single time we have the conversation about affordable housing, every single time we've had a conversation about using the dollars out of this fund, I bring up the same damn topic, and it's, well, in 6 years, when we have the land to build on, I want to have a fund to actually use to build on the land. And I don't want to be going to the citizens at that point with our hand out, asking for a new tax or asking for bonds or asking for that stuff. Like, we should, and I know it's really nice to look at the short term and grab something and support these organizations, but I really want to save that money and build a fund so that when we do have the 6 acres, we can build these units and we don't have to go into debt to do it. And as we just learned with the Habitats for Humanity project, roughly 5 units on a 0.75 acre parcel of land is $3 million, right? So, and I know that in 5 years, that number is not going to be the same, right? Whether it goes up or down, right? But it likely will go up, right? So that's just the number I'm using in the back of my head. And I want to build that fund to be able to support those projects at that time. Is where my perspective is. And it's not just for this project, it's for every single project that we take money out of this fund for.
Carol?
Here. Yes, one of the things that I plan to do is ask you for a 5-year projection of what kind of monies we might anticipate coming into the housing fund and what are the commitments we've already made. So we've got the $600K down payment. We always have the option of taking a little of that for the regular payments. We need to understand over time what this decision would mean. And it includes the $250K that we're pretty much committing to Habitat for Humanity. Can you do that?
So
Can you do a projection
I
like
can
that?
tell you right now, we are projected this year to bring in just under $1 million. That's with projected downturn in sales in that budgeting. So, and that's pretty much close to what we've brought in the past 2 years. So we basically bring in $1 million a year.
Okay. And the commitments we have to date are the $600K for the 6 acres, the $250 for Habitat for
Well, we
Humanity.
haven't committed to that yet. Yep.
Assuming we're going to get there. Just a tentative. What else?
And
The down payment for.
if we have our employee down payment
So
assistance.
we've tied up a little bit, but,
Yep.
and in the near future, before we start developing 6 acres, are we not going to develop a housing program
Yes,
for our own buy downs or deed restrictions or whatever we decide to do?
we will be doing that. That is
So
happening
what kind
this
of
year.
impact would that have on that?
That will depend on you guys and how you want to allocate.
And how much is left over after
Yeah.
after this donation?
And that's the issue, is how
Yeah.
it's left over.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you a question though. When we say the SCHA is us as well. We're a member of
They've said that,
SCHA.
yeah.
They are the guys who are administering basically a big
For us.
part of our housing program for
Agreed.
us. So it's not an outside, or I consider them an adjunct to our staff versus someone else. So I would, if we were putting together a program for down payment assistance, I would question why we would want to have our own down payment assistance program separate from the SHJ program.
What would you say to that?
Because we want to make it more restrictive to who's eligible to,
Keystone first.
yeah,
So we might be looking at both.
and we will be. That's one of the things we'll be bringing to you this summer is in the proposal.
That answer may very well change my opinion whether we should donate.
Well, that's why I want to think more broadly than just we have this much money, shall we do it? Yes.
But as you know, as I said, Keystone relies heavily on housing areas in the other part of the community for Keystone workforce. We have a very fluid
We sure do.
workforce. 1 year you might be working in Breckenridge and the next year you're working in Keystone. And all this time you're living in Silverthorne.
Just throw out a number and we can discuss.
Go ahead.
I have one
We said,
question.
go ahead.
How long do we anticipate this infusion of funds to last, the program? How long did it take to deplete the last, and how much was that?
I believe it was about 3 years, I think, that the program.
Yeah,
has
but they
been-
changed their standards during that period. So
Yeah, as I said, this is something we will be discussing at the retreat on sustainability of programs and not going out asking for donations, but making sure the programs work from the
help us
get-go.
plan.
Yeah,
I don't think the issue is asking for money. I think the issue is that, and this was the issue that we had in October, was that they're asking for the same amount of money from us as they are for Breckenridge and every other town, right? Which just doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that there's different funding levels there. I will just throw this out because I think Carol's getting at this. 25,000.
Ooh, you're lower than me, but yeah,
Okay.
it's a starting position.
25,000.
You want to hear
would be the idea
that
I kind of
25
had
pay ones?
in my mind.
and I mean, one thing I do want to push on this is this is something that you as a council can go in front of our constituents and say, we're putting together our housing program. We've already land banked some property. This is something we're doing right now,
Yeah,
which is it's an important message.
I concur. And I think, I mean, if we take the number away, are we generally in agreement that we want to contribute to this fund? Maybe we start there.
I think the answer is yes.
Well,
It's just
from this side of the, okay.
25 to 50 to 75. Those are the three numbers.
Oh, I was going to say 35, but not to be a contrarian, but to split the baby.
We're talking about maybe having our own program. This covers until that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Or we just decide that we contribute into this as our program.
Or that.
And we can always contribute more if that's the decision we make, that we want to use this program as our base program.
I can't emphasize enough, and me personally, right now, I don't want to speak for everyone. This needs to be proportional moving forward, in my perspective.
Yeah.
And moving forward or now?
Well, a little bit of both, but we're making it proportional now.
But you're not.
I think something less than 75 is being generally getting the head nods. Okay. So we just got to come up with a number.
John, is there a way to objectify the benefit to Keystone and Keystone kind of constituents? I know we keep talking about proportional, but does this program help our population, maybe even more so than Dillon or Frisco or someone else that would be willing to pay more? Or do we probably, does the population that we have not benefit as much as someone else and therefore might not want to, is there a way to kind of, because I think what we've all said, right? We know we have a housing problem and we've got lots of ideas of ways to maybe work on that housing problem. Is this a good one? Is this a good return on investment for our $75,000?
This is a good return on investment. It's the only real, like I said, with our fluid workforces and the fact that so much of the Keystone workforce doesn't live in Keystone, especially the people who are buying properties, not necessarily renting properties.
Right, but
Yeah.
is there a program that may benefit them more proportionally? You know what I'm saying, than the loan assistance?
Well, this is a program for mid-managers who want to buy a house and stay here
So is that
forever. And
our target population of what we're trying to help? Right? And I know, right, it all overlaps, right? I get all that. But is this a good bang for the buck for what we're trying to achieve as a Keystone community to achieve the goals that we've set?
I feel it is, and I look at it this way. If you break up workforce, you have Copper Mountain, similar workforce to Keystone. Breckenridge is probably 3-4 times the workforce. We're a much bigger workforce in the town of Dillon. Probably similar to Frisco and Silverthorne.
And if you look at the people being supported, I'm not as worried about people supporting people who are going to buy in Keystone. I'm worried about supporting the Keystone workforce.
And I think that might be the differentiator, right? Is looking at people that live, vote, are citizens of Keystone versus the stakeholders of Keystone.
Yes.
Which often includes a variety of people, but also the workforce.
And
But see, I would disagree that someone who works in Keystone isn't also a stakeholder.
No. And
That's
that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. I was trying to get at that point, that you don't have to be a voting citizen of Keystone to be a stakeholder for us.
And because of the way Keystone was developed and our suburb of Summit Cove and to some extent Dillon Valley, it's really hard to pull up exact numbers on.
You could probably get a number of people who live in Keystone, but getting people who work in Keystone is probably difficult.
So just summarize, everybody is in favor of a great program.
Yes.
That's what we're here.
yes,
The issue I hear on the table is, we are just kind of still starting up. We know that we're going to have some big fees or costs in the future when it comes to housing here, whether it's an acreage that we acquire or something else. And to me, it doesn't feel fair that we're contributing the same as others. So I personally would support $50,000 contribution to this immediately.
I would support that as well.
Would I be able to counter and offer a $40,000 contribution, which would be enough for one down payment assistance?
I would concur with that.
I'm still sticking at 50.
Okay, I can compromise.
Very specific.
It sounds, well, when I think of they're asking 75,000, I do want to be a partner in this, and 50 isn't 75, but it's closer than 40. It sounds better. And I think it's a reasonable investment that we can still grow our needs, but just not go up there. I also want to make a point that it should be proportional. I mean, I'm like others, I didn't want to go 75.
Are you estimating that 50 might be proportional?
I don't think anybody can really figure that
Yeah.
out.
And what about our colleagues at the other end here?
I think proportional is the right thing. And how you calculate proportional, it is an interesting discussion. You could calculate it based on the total number of workforce that you have in town, or you could calculate it on SCHA revenue. I'd rather calculate it on SCHA revenue, but
I kind of had 50,000 in mind after reading it. I mean, then I kind of played with the $45,000 number, but I agree. I think 50 has a little bit of a ring to it out of the 75 ask, that being a partner in the group. And I agree with all the other comments, but like I say, for me, I guess I'm in that $45,000 to $50,000 range.
All right. Aaron?
I could do that.
Yeah, I think that's worth it. That 40 to 50 doesn't make that much of a difference.
45 then?
I think,
I'm serious, it's a heart attack.
I think 50 is just a much better number.
I don't want to make a
45
decision
sounds
based on
like-
how it sounds.
Well, that's what politics is.
Yes.
It's up to us to explain how we got there. I think we can.
Well, so how do we decide then?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, let's do it this way. How many would favor, and we'll go right through, start at 50, go to 45, and go to 40. How many would favor 50,000?
Is there the I don't care option for any of this? Because I'll raise my hand for all three.
All right. So there would be
Yeah.
3 out of 4.
and 5. How, 5?
You don't need to go farther, we're done.
Well, then, all right. So
Right.
you got 50. And you need to
We'll
bring.
be able to communicate it in a way other than how it's.
I don't,
We're getting 2/3.
I'll have to
Yes.
look at our budget. That's 50,000 is within my spending authority as long as it's budgeted.
It's not budgeted.
Is that something we would,
We'll have
The
to.
program was not budgeted.
Yeah, so we have, I mean, we have housing additional program budgeted at $100,000. And that was to be determined by council. And includes refreshing the Summit County Housing Program.
No, I disagree.
So
I disagree that 100,000 was initially intended because we were developing, we committed this year with the new position that we've added to the staff to develop a housing program this year. That 100,000 was to be part of that.
Let me, first of all, I've got council approval for 50,000. So the question is just whether I have to come back with the resolution or whether it's in the budget. So
Why don't you come back in the council meeting under other business and ask for authority for it? Would that be legal or not?
I think it's legal. Yeah.
And they'd be a
probably
thumbs up or thumbs down.
The thing too, though, is do you want a paper trail for it? I mean, do you want a resolution? I mean,
why not?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't we?
my concern is if it's actually budgeted, I have a real hard time coming back to the council to get second approval for money that's already been budgeted. So
This specific program was not budgeted.
Yeah, we didn't.
You do not have discretionary authority for items that are that were budgeted. This program was not budgeted.
Are we not going to need a supplemental
Yeah,
budget
this would be a
anyway
supplemental budget if
to address the 250? Should we give that to Habitat for Humanity?
we certainly would at that point.
Okay,
So, and
roll it up then.
yeah, so
But let's back up. If a supplemental budget is only required if we're going over the approved spending amount in that total spending amount, we're not going over the spending
So
amount.
you're saying we're using
There
part
would
of
be
the
no
100
requirement. There'd be no requirement until we hit that,
and then we do it.
then we have to do a supplemental.
Well, and also, wouldn't that be tied to the actual anticipated spend of it? So I'd hate to.
It's not
yeah, so the
anticipated.
supplemental budget is only required if you appropriate more funds than you previously appropriated. So right now, we have appropriated almost 900,000. So it's only required if we go over that. And with that being said, I mean, we've got, when I look at it, you know, we've got that 100,000 I just talked about, and then we've got 150 that we have for professional services for conceptual site plans. So if we don't use those amounts, then we'll be fine. So you guys are just talking about what, $40,000 to $50,000 So if we don't use 150, if you don't use 100,000 for site plans, we don't use it all, we'll be fine without a supplemental budget.
John, just bring it to us in other business and.
You did approve it though in November.
Budget aside,
With that, with the language, includes the refreshing SEHA programming.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
All right. Stay corrected as long as.
say that again?
The budget contemplated that was approved in November, actually specifically called out in the notes, in that 100,000 that Heike
Okay.
said, and
Okay,
includes a refreshing SEHA program.
so
That
I
gives-
always listen to our attorney. When we bring it up in other business and we specify that we had decided on 50K, does that become a part of?
I can bring a resolution anyways. It's not the end of the world.
Oh, I thought you were saying that would be like.
Yeah.
No, given that language, I don't believe he has to bring it to us. Correct.
No, he doesn't have to, but the fact that we decided on that amount, how, I
It
just,
doesn't matter. It's within the total amount in the appropriation.
Well, you're going to bring it, you're going to talk about another business, right?
that's what I'm
No, I was
saying.
just saying-
Like it on the record.
I don't see a need to right now because there was no dollar amount. There was a dollar amount attached to that amount, and you said it was $100,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Therefore, it's within that budgeted amount. We don't need to go through the administrative piece.
Need to. However, it clarifies for the record that this wasn't the town manager's decision.
I think it's better to do it in other business just because you don't take minutes of a work session meeting. Council is providing direction that the manager is going to act on. There was a lot of discussion of the different dollar amounts. I think it's just for clarity,
All right.
good to do it.
We don't need a resolution, but we can
I
have,
need a resolution to do this stuff.
yeah.
Right.
All right, that's fine. All right. Next item is school district consolidation.
Ooh, baby. Mayor and I had our last mayors and managers commissioners meeting. I know last meeting we told you that
Isn't gonna be.
we have till April to make any decisions, but it sounds like they are going to be presenting, the committee is going to be presenting a consolidation recommendation this Thursday to the Board of Education. Board of Education is not going to be making any decisions at this meeting on Thursday, but you know, once the report's out there, the report is out there. I know I still have a lot of questions about any proposals that they've even discussed at this point, how it would actually solve the financial problems. I just have all sorts of questions about this situation. You know, the two proposals that the superintendent has talked to us about at mayors, managers, and commissioners has been closing Breck Elementary, doing additional construction at Upper Blue Elementary, and moving all of the students from Breck L to Upper Blue. Or
He's also talked about handling a rezoning of areas for each school to take the students who live in Farmers Corner and move them to Frisco.
Say that again, please?
The elementary students who live in Farmers Corner,
Yeah.
move them to Frisco out of Recco. Not out of Recco, out of.
Kind of like go two different directions.
Yeah.
now these enrollment numbers in the report, I believe, are not the latest. They're the latest that the state has posted on their website. I haven't been able to get in contact with the superintendent. We're having a discussion about it. There's
Those two possibilities currently the ones on the table?
No, the third is closing Summit Cove and distributing its students among all students. I have a fundamental problem with the fact that, well, the fact that they are, why don't they close Breckell and distribute the students to all the schools? If there's excess capacity at these other schools, why would we expand Upper Blue and still leave Frisco and Summit Cove with what they consider too low of enrollment in their situation?
Because they intend to close another school?
That they haven't said anything like that?
The quick, try to move this along.
They're not showing up what's up their sleeve. They're trying to be open to all.
They have the three options. They're looking for the multiple options. They're looking at those. The real question before us now, today,
Yes.
is shall we send a letter to the school district prior to the Thursday meeting that lays out our concerns from the community standpoint? We haven't seen the report yet. We haven't seen the direction they're going. But from a community standpoint, our concern is the impact on our community. And the impact on our community is our objectives of bringing this community together as a single community. And so there's a draft letter in here, in your packets, that address that. And just wanted to get your thoughts. We have an opportunity later. I think it's also in the council meeting.
Well, I won in the council meeting because if we're going to send it, I think we should have
Absolutely
a vote of the council.
I mean, I like the letter and thank you for everyone that put the work into it. But first draft. I do think the manager is correct. Like once the report's out there, it's out there. And let's be honest, it's Tuesday, Thursdays. But
your report's going out.
The report's already made. Like our letter's not going to change the report. It's just
what you're trying to do is get the school district to broaden their
criteria
to receive and to change it and to ensure that impact on a community is considered.
With that being said, I would support the letter.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's well written. I like it. It hits all the major points of concern.
All right.
I think it's important to be preventive, to get that position in front of them beforehand. And it's well written. I like it.
I would say the president of the school board and the superintendent got that message last week. It was an uncomfortable discussion, but they got that message. But I think it's important to get it before that.
How is it uncomfortable?
I would not discuss it.
Yeah.
Oh,
We have a confidentiality thing going on with mayor manager. It's not a public meeting.
I understand.
And, you know what?
Is the discomfort coming from y'all or from?
There was a strong position of the town of Keystone stated fairly strongly. And in that environment, it was uncomfortable for, I think, the entire rest of the group to deal with large disagreements like that as we dealt with it. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say.
So that has not been the norm. Did Dylan take a position?
No, they're not impacted. Their children don't go here.
I do want to point out one thing that I did find on the CD site, as I said, their description of Summit Cove Elementary, I think really nails our position, which is founded in 1996. Summit Cove Elementary School has a rich history as the hub of a close-knit community.
To be fair, that's probably written by the school, not the district.
By our district, I would imagine.
No, but it was the school.
Well, it was sent, it wasn't written
And it
by
was
the
endorsed by the
CDE.
district. You're
Yeah,
right.
it wasn't written by the CDE. It was,
I think the 1996 is maybe just as important.
Yeah.
So we're in agreement.
We're in agreement, and we'll go back, revisit it, and get a formal vote on this during the council meeting. All right, last item, Colorado legislation, Mr. Town Manager.
Okay, so, and apologize to our attorney, I don't know why I didn't call my attorney last week and talk about all of this stuff. But one thing before, at mayors, managers, and commissioners, we discussed some of the pending legislation that's going to impact towns, whether it impacts Keystone or not. It's going to impact the way the state deals with municipalities going forward. The act I talk about specifically is the Home Act, House Bill 26-1001, will not impact Keystone directly because it is limited to towns of 2,000 or more. So at this time, it will not impact Keystone directly. Before we talk about this, I do want to talk about a couple other pieces of legislation. The vacancy.
Did you see the update on that?
Yeah, the home vacancy tax has, for all intents and purposes, been killed. I know we as a town had kind of talked about that, and we're not necessarily opposed to it, but we were certainly opposed to it in our town. Now we don't even have to worry about it because the legislature killed it.
Let me clarify. The legislature did not kill it. It never came out of finance committee.
Yeah.
Because when they had the hearing that went into the late at night, there was so much opposition, they decided not to advance it.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, it could always come back up. Yes.
Yeah.
It always
Those could be brought back the next year.
Nothing ever dies.
Yeah. This was kind of a last second thought here because the home bill is, boy, it is a real overreach on the state on municipal control over their own built environments. We discussed before last year they had the YIGBY, which would allow schools and churches to build housing up to 45 feet tall without any approvals from local planning whatsoever. If you were a church or a school and owned property, you could build deed restricted housing. Okay, it's not, you couldn't build $12 million mansions and sell it, deed restricted housing. That failed last year, didn't advance given a pretty consolidated opposition by all the municipalities. This one seems to be really rushing through the legislature. This, in a way, even expands it. It gives anyone who has, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you form a relationship with a nonprofit in the business of providing housing, and you could do that. A church could do that, even though churches aren't mentioned anymore. Any nonprofit can do it if they have a relationship with a nonprofit providing housing, which there are lots of those.
It's awful. So what do we do?
And as I've read the bill also, the housing built doesn't all have to be workforce housing.
No.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's just hypocritical. But
Yeah. What I'm recommending is, and I put a draft of a letter that the town of Breckenridge is sending to the speaker.
Oh, that's a draft.
They sent it.
They sent it. They sent it. Yes, they sent
The
it.
number is wrong.
Yeah, they just had the number wrong. Yes, they sent this in. And I'm asking, I want to know, should I draft up something modeled very closely on this, but Keystone specific?
I would look immediately to Carol's to get
Thank you.
Carol, John's view of it, since there are legislative reps.
I think it really comes down to one question. Why would any group, regardless of how honorable they are, be empowered to bypass local zoning reviews? That means consideration of impact on water system, on roads, on traffic, and no public comment, period, involved. So I I think there are three ways forward. One is to reproduce Breck's position in our own letter. The second is, and just so you know, Boulder is doing it, and CML is creating their proposed amendments. I've been in touch with them a number of times since their opposed position failed in the House. It's passed the House. Governor Polis has already signaled his support. Representative McCluskey and Senator Roberts have endorsed it. This is going to happen unless we create what did you call
Groundswell.
a groundswell for amendments. That's why I pointed out what happened last night to keep it from coming out of committee in the House. So one is to reproduce the Breck's letter. Two, each of us can reach out to Senator Dylan Roberts. I can give you CML's language as well as this Breck language that you can put in an email to him. And third, I've told CML I'm willing to testify at the Senate hearing if they'll help with talking points and if Lindsay will make me smart. I don't know, now that you mentioned the 2,000, I don't know if I'll have standing, so. But I recommend that we do all of the above.
I think you have standing as a home rule community.
Okay.
I mean, you can state your position that as a home rule community, that land use should be within your local control and that you're worried about overreach. I mean, this could be amended so that the subject jurisdictions could be lowered.
Okay, that's a good point.
So you would support sending a letter?
Yeah.
Well,
I think Carol summed it up really well. The only other thing I'd add on to there is that this bill seems like a very specific, like there's very few people that are going to benefit and would support this as is. And I think that there's a lot of people, even larger cities like Boulder, as Carol pointed out, who you would think immediately this was like made for, are in opposition.
It's the home rule issue. It's the state knows best. What's all the communities in the state, which is just trampled all over home rule.
And yet again, an unfounded requirement because you have to develop administrative review processes that don't exist and they're not paying for.
And it also creates a situation where it says the state's primary concern is build housing, no matter what the cost. And their focus is not on affordable, it's on all housing. And up in our communities, this could be a tremendous benefit to a developer. It's just so.
I agree with the mayor. This thing is full of loopholes that you could drive a train through to exploit for high profit.
Yeah. So.
Can I ask a question? Did they make it so broad and so ugly, knowing that we're going to fight, they're actually open for this?
I think so.
Given that
They expanded it from
last year, I think it's all about trying to get speed.
Yeah.
And the fact that the governor and those key legislators came out so early and said, this is the solution. I think they think they're steamrolling it.
This is a political play, and I'm disappointed that Representative McCluskey, who represents this district, and Senator Roberts, who represents this area, would sign up to this with the tremendous adverse impacts on all of the towns of Summit County.
I feel like they didn't think it through. Like a lot of people don't realize this is like, oh, well, nonprofits can do this. Nonprofits are going to do good. People don't realize that for-profit companies can own nonprofit companies. Nonprofit companies can own for-profit companies, and nonprofit companies can sell real estate to for-profit companies.
Yeah. So can I ask a question? Obviously, I think we're all saying yes, letter as quickly, but contacting, I guess, as council members or as citizens.
Okay.
You can say that you're council. Yeah. Because you're representing all of your constituents.
So then my request then is, it'd be great to get those emails. I don't have them.
I'll send it to you.
And maybe even some talking points, if that's easy.
Yeah.
And, what's the timeline on this?
Yesterday, you know, it's
Yeah, I think
unbelievable.
they are, like I said, they're trying to move fast. I don't think the Senate hearing is scheduled, but our intent is to get ahead of it.
So we should, if you could help us, then.
I will.
Let me give a recommendation. Recommendation is we task John in coordination with John and Carol to draft the letter. As soon as you guys, and give them the guidance that once they have a draft that they agree with, that they can send it to me and I'll sign it to get it out just for expediency. I'm not sure we want to wait 2 weeks. And leave it up to their discretion to draft. I'll sign and we'll get it out the door. And then with a further recommendation that each of the council members provide comments to our legislatures if you desire.
Helpful, if you could do that.
Generally, the letter from Breckenridge is ever in support of those kind of talking points.
Yeah. But I think the letter needs to be, it shouldn't be just a copy of Brex that we signed, because I'll tell you, as soon as you receive 2 letters that are identical, you now ignore.
Yeah, form letters
Don't do
are
it.
not given the same kind of credence.
Well, can I ask the question for the body? As you read this, they're in for the Home Act.
I think they recognize it's
clarification on all these kind of, is that what we're saying in this letter, that we, or are we just saying this particular bill, here's the, because I could see legislators taking a look at this and saying, oh, these are some valid points. We close some of these loopholes and we still get the same outcome
I had very similar thought when I read this, because at first I was like,
so did I.
Support of, and then I immediately started reading and I was like, wait, this is not in support of the bill as written. So I think that to Carol's point, that people might understand that this bill is going to be happening. So let's try to change it the most we can, because just standing here in opposition is probably not going to work.
But I think it's important for us to say we oppose the bill and then give, if we must, give recommendations for changes to it. But the concern, the broader concern, other than the tremendous impact it's going to have on planning, zoning, and communities, is it tramples home rule. And I could never support anything this from the legislation that would trample so.
And that so-called trampling, I like that word, is true regardless of what we say.
Regardless.
That's the essence of the problem.
I had the same concern when I read it. So is that enough guidance for you guys to go forward?
Yeah.
You get me something this week, I can get it signed. All right. Ooh.
Well, one other bill that I have slight concerns, and I haven't looked into it deeply enough and talked to our attorney, is Senate Bill 26001, which is workforce housing and housing tax credit. CML supports that, but that bill, as written, I believe, I don't know if it's been amended yet, creates a statewide AMI, which is a very big problem for rural resort communities. So I'll be keeping you in touch.
And I haven't looked
on
into
that.
it any farther.
And I would ask you,
Yeah.
get those concerns into John and Carol. And then we can come back and circle around if we need to take a position on it. And Carol and John, as you look at the bills that are going forward, if you think there are positions the town should be taking, please bring it to the council.
Right. So this is why I brought up that I wanted to make sure you all knew about the EMB last year. It never went far enough that we needed to get involved. And as noticed last time we had a policy committee meeting, I sent it out to y'all so you could stay. I have noticed this year they're not having as many of those meetings, which I'm confused about, but I didn't bring that up yet. So next one's the 20th.
And I think Carol's going to the CML legislative update John, are you going to be available for it? Or?
It's all day in
Yeah,
Denver.
I'm not.
But if you can't go to that, there is another one that
Cast.
it's open to everyone. I'm not even getting to the cast yet. CML is doing a legislative update. That's an online, weigh in. It's right on the CML webpage. It's the 20th at noon for an hour.
Is it one tomorrow too?
Say again?
Yeah,
Is one tomorrow?
there's one tomorrow.
That's different. It's a caucus thing.
Oh, municipal caucus, you're right. But that's all I've
That's enough.
got on there right now.
And at this point, it's only 6:03. And I will
Jinx it.
adjourn the work session.